The first 3 Halo games are all 3 some of the games I played the most in my life. So I decided to make a video ranking all of their levels, starting with what I think is the worst level and ending on what I think is the best level. Couple things to square away. Cinematic levels like the Heretic or Arrival are not counted. I'm also not counting Armory from Halo 2. Originally, I considered ranking all of the levels across every game, but I'm not doing that because I don't know the other games as well, and in the case of Halo 5, I played through it once and never touched it again. This list is simply my opinion and me sharing what levels I like more than others.
Of course you like Silent Cartographer better than Assault in the Control Room, you stupid casual. Unsubscribed and blocked.
I'm assuming every single person who watches this video will disagree with me on at least a couple of levels, and that's totally fine. Let me know in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with, and how you would rank the levels. Without further ado, let's start with my least favorite level of the Halo trilogy. Number 32, the Library. No shocker here, I think this would be last on most people's lists, and you'd probably have a hard time finding anyone who'd place it higher than second worst at most. You're walking through dark rooms with gray walls that all look the same with tons of flood coming at you the entire level. If you could run straight through, it wouldn't be nearly as bad, but there are a few sections where you're supposed to hold out while Spark tries to open a door. The longest one of these sequences is 90 seconds. In the Halo Combat Evolved devs react to speedrun video from IGN, which is a must-watch by the way, one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time, the developers laugh about how the library is way too long and it's painful to watch.
Man, even through there, this level is really long.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I think we probably could have cut a floor or two.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
this is...
feel
Learning some of the speedrun tricks does make this level more fun, so I would definitely recommend that. But yeah, the library is the worst Halo level in my opinion, and you may notice a running thread between this level and the next few. Number 31, Cortana. This is another one that I don't think should be controversial. This level is pretty much unanimously considered the worst in Halo 3 and one of the worst in the entire series. The rooms look samey and don't resemble High Charity from Halo 2. It's filled with pure forms which are terrible and slow down your progression through the level and make it feel like a slog. The saving grace of Cortana is its story impact and the Arbiter randomly showing up with a flamethrower at the end of it. Number 30, Sacred Icon. Sacred Icon is a spiritual successor to the library. It's like the devs knew they'd messed up with the library and this was their attempt to make a library type level but better. And I do think it's better than the library. The environment is more interesting and I think crossing through the Sentinel Wall and getting deeper and deeper into territory overrun by the Flood is cool. But it's frankly just not very fun to play through. Part of the problem is that Halo 2 I think definitely has the worst iteration of the Flood and the human combat forms even more so than the elites. The best thing Sacred Icon has going for it is that it's relatively short. Number 29, Quarantine Zone. The 1-2 punch of Sacred Icon and Quarantine Zone usually kills my full game playthrough attempts of Halo 2. Not because they're hard, but because playing through them back to back really drags. Having the Flood drive vehicles I think was a good twist on the gameplay. You get to fight against human vehicles like Warthogs and Scorpions, but overall it's pretty meh. On Legendary it gets annoying. The best way to beat Quarantine Zone is by grabbing a ghost and speeding through most of it. If you do play through it by grabbing the first tank, it'll take a while to beat on Legendary between Rocket Flood, other vehicles, and the Enforcers. Most of the level is pretty meh until the end where you ride a gondola for 5 minutes. Not good. This does mark the end of levels that I would say I don't like. Every level going forward I like, just to varying degrees. Number 28, Savo Highway. Savo Highway is basically Quarantine Zone minus the Flood and Gondola. I don't think it's a bad level, it's just whatever. It's the first vehicle level of the game, but the next level, the Storm, is also a vehicle level and its vehicle sections are much better. Savo Highway just feels like filler. Like they needed it because you can't just have 8 levels in your game. I think it's the most forgettable level in Halo 3. Number 27, the Oracle. So yeah, this is the weird part of the list where the levels are pretty low overall, but I actually enjoy playing through them. The first half of the Oracle with the pretty infamous elevator ride in the holdout section in the big room is rough. After that though, the rest of the level is great. The second half of the Oracle backtracks through part of the previous level in the game, the Arbiter. I actually like this section. Between the Flood now being everywhere and the station falling out of the sky, you really feel a sense of urgency. I'm not really a fan of the boss fight though. Number 26, High Charity. I talked about this in my Halo 2 Legendary video, but I think High Charity actually gets a bad rap. It's really short, which for a Flood level is actually a good thing, but it really nails a horror atmosphere, and watching High Charity get overrun by the Flood and delving deeper and deeper into the depths is pretty unnerving. It's a Flood level, which you may have noticed I generally think are the worst kind of levels, but it's what a Flood level should be. It's a complete 180 and change of pace from the Covenant levels, but it doesn't drag on too long. Number 25, 2 Betrayals. Assault in the Control Room reuses the same rooms over and over, so by the end of that level you're sick of seeing them. Then comes in 2 Betrayals a couple levels later where you get to go through them all again, except this time you have to fight the Flood as well, and it's even harder. Unless you steal one of the Banshees on Assault in the Control Room, 2 Betrayals is the first time in the game where you get to fly a Banshee, so that's cool at least. But for the most part it's just long and repetitive. competitive. Number 24, Keys. Keys is another level that just reuses geometry from an earlier and better level, but I think it's done better here. The Covenant are established at the start of Combat Evolved as the big bad guys who are on the verge of pushing humanity to extinction, and seeing them just get completely wrecked by the Flood really puts the threat of the Flood into perspective. So while it reuses geometry, I think the Truth and Reconciliation is at least an interesting environment to see the Flood in, whereas the Snowy Canyon in Two Betrayals isn't. Number 23, Outskirts. Outskirts was the first level in Halo history that took place on Earth. I really like the city environment and think it's a good place to fight the Covenant, and obviously defending Earth was one of Halo 2's selling points. The reason it isn't higher is because I think that's really all it has going for it. After almost 20 years of playing it, I don't think it's that special of a level. I like it, don't get me wrong, but prior to my Halo 2 Legendary video, I hadn't played it casually in years. Running on the rooftops and then driving past everything is, for me, more fun than playing it how you're supposed to. Oh yeah, there are also too many sniper jackals. Number 22, The Great Journey. The Great Journey is the last level of Halo 2, but it wasn't intended to be the last level originally. You can tell too, in contrast to the Maw in Halo and Halo 3, it's pretty anticlimactic. That's not why it's in the lower middle though. I think the vehicle section at the start and Banshee section drag in the boss fight, although my favorite of the three still isn't great. I really like the indoor section before you free Johnson. Getting to fight alongside hunters is awesome, and the last room where you free prisoners is one of my favorite rooms in the whole game. Number 21, Sierra 117. Sierra 117 is definitely my least favorite opening level between these three games. It starts to open up once you get a carbine, and I think the dam is a great way to end it. Sierra 117 is a fun level, but there are just better levels in it. Number 20, Halo from Combat Evolved. When I was a kid, I really loved this mission, going from the enclosed corridors of the Pillar of Autumn to the wide open, semi-free roam first level on the Halo ring. I would always get lost in the second half of the level where you drive around saving Marines. So don't get me wrong, I love this level, but looking past the nostalgia from when this level amazed me as a child, I think in terms of the actual design, it's pretty mid-tier, which mid-tier for classic Halo is still pretty good. Number 19, Assault in the Control Room. AOTCR is one that I liked a lot more when I was younger and hadn't played the game as much. As an adult and as someone who's beaten Halo 1 more times than I can count, most of the level is just copy-pasting the same room over and over. The difference between this and a level like the library is that at least the one room here is actually good. The outdoor sections are fantastic and a great change of pace. It's also the only tank mission of Halo 1, so it has that going for it. Number 18, Metropolis. Speaking of tank missions, Metropolis is a pretty good level that starts off with a great tank section. Like Outskirts, I think the city environment serves it well, and it's an interesting place to fight the Covenant in. The Scarab fight at the end is lame compared to what they do with the Scarab in Halo 2, but firing rockets and sniping at enemies while the Scarab is moving is still fun. Number 17, Regret. Regret is overall a great mission. I get annoyed by the Jackal snipers, yeah, but Delta Halo structures are a good environment, and I think the underwater section is great. I hate the boss fight. It's terrible. It is funny at least to see Master Chief board the Prophet of Regret like he's a vehicle and just punch him in the face. Number 16, Floodgate. Floodgate is about as good as a Flood level can be. The atmosphere is great, and I actually like the use of backtracking here. Going back through where you just were on the storm and seeing how the Flood have completely overrun everything is 10 out of 10. My only minor complaint with this level isn't even with the level, it's with the Flood as enemies. Namely the Pure Forms, which pop up in the last section. Minus them, Floodgate is awesome. Number 15, the Arbiter. I really like the Arbiter. I think it stands better in the context of the entire campaign on a full game run than on its own. It's a good change of pace from the first three levels of Halo 2 with the Energy Sword, Covenant Carbine, and the Arbiter's camo ability. My only criticism would be that the Banshee section at the end is really long and boring. Thankfully, you can skip past all of it by just going where the Heretic leader is hiding. Number 14, Crow's Nest. Crow's Nest is a great level. There's a lot of backtracking, but I don't really mind it. The barracks section is one of my favorite in the game, and I think Crow's Nest really establishes the brutes as unique enemies from elites with their behavior in this level and the encounters. In the barracks, you fight a ton of brutes. There are way more brutes in this section than you'd ever find elites in a single section, and fighting through it is pretty fun. Number 13, Pillar of Autumn. I love Pillar of Autumn. It's a great introduction to the series. It's classic Halo combat. You fight elites and grunts, no terrible, awful Halo 1 jackals anywhere in sight. I remember being a kid who sucked at video games trying to beat Halo 1 Legendary, but I would always get stuck on this level. I mean, the very first fight in the mess hall would take me like half an hour. I don't have that much more to say about Pillar of Autumn except that I love it and I admittedly have insane nostalgia for it. The only reason it isn't higher is because I think the levels ahead of it are better. Number 12, Cairo Station. Like Pillar of Autumn, Cairo Station is an awesome introductory level. It's one of my favorite first levels in any game period. The space station itself is an interesting environment, more so than Pillar of Autumn. You go through a lot of different looking rooms that are all fun to fight bad guys in, and the outer space sections are a good change change of pace. The one thing I will say is that Cairo doesn't have Jackal, so it's flooded with elites, and it doesn't have power weapons, so if you're playing on Legendary, you are completely relying on the noob combo. But that doesn't really affect my enjoyment of it. Number 11, Uprising. Uprising is a great level and definitely the better half of Uprising Great Journey. Getting to fight Brutes as the Arbiter alongside other elites I think is more satisfying than fighting them as Master Chief. I also really like the layout of the interiors on this level and those enemy encounters. The reason it isn't higher is because I'm not really a fan of the vehicle section in the second half. Otherwise, I think it's awesome. Number 10, the Storm. The first half of the Storm I think is okay. It's fun, but nothing that particularly special. Then the Scarab drops in. Awesome fight. Giving the Scarab its own AI in Halo 3 was one of the best changes Bungie made from Halo 2. I love getting up top and jumping onto it from above. The rest of this level 2 from that point is fantastic. The hunters are introduced in a cool way and the fight against the Hammer Chieftain is pretty good. Number 9, the Maw. This is another level that reuses geometry, but like Keys, I think it works better because the Pillar of Autumn is an environment that's cool to see again and how it's changed after crashing and the Flood taking over. It's also helped by being the last level in the game and being as far away from the Pillar of Autumn the level as possible. As far as playing through it, I think it's good, but it's definitely elevated by the Warthog run, which is one of the best endings in video game history and is a lot of fun. Number 8, Halo from Halo 3. So with Halo, the Halo 3 version, I actually prefer the Maw to its first half. The first half of Halo is honestly mid, but to an even greater extent than the Maw, the Warthog run is absolutely amazing and makes the whole thing worth playing and then some. If this level ended with you killing 343 Guilty Spark, spoiler alert, it would probably be somewhere in the 20s. The Warthog run is incredible and really picks up the whole mission. Number 7, Delta Halo. Delta Halo serves the same purpose as Halo, the CE level. It's your introduction to the Halo ring. Delta Halo I think is a much more fun level to play through that takes you through several different encounters that are all pretty fun. There's no one section in Delta Halo that just absolutely blows my mind like one of the Warthog runs. It's just a solid level throughout. Number 6, 343 Guilty Spark. 343 Guilty Spark terrified me as a child. This, I think, hands down, is the best Flood mission. The atmosphere is incredible and a perfect juxtaposition to the epic sci-fi space action that makes up the first 5 levels of combat evolved. Being trapped in a facility without Cortana with a new enemy you don't know anything about except that they're murdering everyone and turning them into zombies where you don't know where to go or how to get out is the perfect way to introduce the Flood to the series. If you haven't, I highly recommend watching this clipped together video of several people who've never played Halo before playing through this mission. I'll link it in the description. Number 5, the Ark. The Ark is a great level. I know a lot of people would have it number 1 and I completely understand why. I love the sniping section, I love the Scorpion section and the Scarab fight, and the last third inside the Forerunner structure is great. The only reason this level isn't higher is because I simply like the other levels better. Number 4, the Silent Cartographer. The Silent Cartographer is the classic Halo level. It not only was the first finished level, but I think it's the best showcase of everything Halo CE has to offer. From the classic beach fight to exploring the non-linear island to the descent to the map room, it's absolutely fantastic. It's not my top ranked level from Halo CE, but if I had to pick one level to show someone who's never played the game before, I would pick Silent Cartographer. Side note, this is also the coolest level in the game to speedrun. If you haven't seen a speedrun of Silent Cartographer, check out someone like Garish Goblin or Cambit and watch them run it. It's sick. Number 3, Truth and Reconciliation. I think I'm in the minority on having Truth and Reconciliation this high. It's definitely the hardest level in the game, and a lot of people from what I've seen dislike it for that reason. I remember as a kid thinking the holdout section when you first get inside the ship was impossible and Legendary without cheating. My strat was to hide behind one of the doors. Part of my love for T&R is honestly just because I love the sniper rifle, but the fights on the ring, although tough, I think are fun to get through, and there's nothing better than getting the lift clears just right. And I think the inside of a Covenant ship is a really great environment for fighting Covenant. I've always loved that part of it. The only negative of this level is the escort mission at the end. Occasionally Keys will kill himself, but that doesn't break my enjoyment. Number 2, the Covenant. The Covenant is about as climactic as a third to last level can be, which makes sense because my understanding is that it was basically supposed to be the last level of Halo 2 originally. The Covenant is a fantastic level. It's a level where the Covenant is destroyed and the Arbiter gets his revenge. Clearing the towers is fun, I like the Hornet section, the tank section, and the 2 Scarab fight is cool, and of course, fighting alongside the Flood is awesome. It takes you all sorts of places and has a bunch of different kinds of encounters, and they're all fun. It's just a really good level. Number 1, Gravemind. 2 of the hardest levels in the series, Truth and Reconciliation, Gravemind, are in my top 3, which probably says something about me. I love Gravemind. I think from a gameplay perspective, it benefits from enemy variety. It's the only level in the series where you fight every single kind of Covenant enemy. Grunts, Jackals, Drones, Hunters, Brutes, and Elites. There's a ton of variety in combat in terms of enemies and the environments you go to and weapons at your disposal. On a story level, I also just love the idea of running through the Covenant's capital while a civil war is going on. It's like Enemy of My Enemy from Modern Warfare 2009, except in space and with aliens instead of Russians. That's it for my list. Like I said at the start, I'm not expecting a single person who watches this video to agree with every ranking. Let me know in the comments how you'd rank the levels and I'll catch y'all later.